So we're in this really interesting phase of Nintendo contempt and hatred, right? We're in this really weird position where Nintendo has won the console war, right? I've been saying this for a long time, like I think even before the Switch even came out, like how clearly dominant Nintendo was in the console space because they had all the best games, they had the best hardware, they had made all these smart business decisions, while Xbox and PlayStation were just bleeding money. And people tried to call me insane, right? People tried to say that Harmon Smith, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But the reality over the past decade has been very self-evident. Just seeing Pokemon just explode and become the biggest media franchise in the world, seeing the Switch take off, seeing decades long narratives that completely collapse. The idea that Zelda was this stale, derivative, uninspired franchise that peaked in the 90s, just completely up in smoke, after Breath of the Wild came out. Right, seeing people downplay 2D Mario games, right? The list goes on and on and on, right? And it's still going on today. Don't get me wrong, but it's people are beginning to see through it. I'm seeing more and more people begin to notice that the PS2 sales numbers are completely fake. People are beginning to notice just how amazing the Switch actually is, and I think most importantly, uh, people are realizing that Nintendo has won the console war, right? This is the thing that people don't want to admit. They're doing anything they can to do this. The media is trying to spin it nobody really won the console war. Mobile won, PC won, but Nintendo and those other guys, they're completely irrelevant now. What they're trying to do is trying to spin it as if Nintendo didn't clearly stomp their primary competition, right? They're trying to say that it's because of changing market conditions or people just moving on to other formats of entertainment. They're refusing to acknowledge the very clear, self-evident fact that Nintendo won the console war, that they have defeated their primary competition and now they've become a multimedia thing. It's really interesting, looking at the past couple of years, because we saw the narrative, after 2020, oh yeah, Switch sales are going way down, nobody's buying these games anymore, right? Nintendo Switch needs to be replaced now. That was the narrative after 2020. And yet you can look at the sales charts, you can look at the profit margins, and you see that Nintendo is making about twice as much as they were at their peak in the Wii and DS era, right? In a lot of ways, they're doing better than ever. Actually, no, in every way, they're doing better than ever. They have no real weaknesses. There's no real cope to downplay their success. There's no the mindset that people had that people would just get bored of Pokemon. There's that really funny South Park episode. Compare this is a really good point that I came up with a while back. Compare the South Park Pokemon episode versus the WoW one. Because the point of the Pokemon one is that it's just a stupid fad. Kids will grow out of it. Pokemon is just a stupid thing where you collect pointless things and it's just a silly thing for children. They'll grow out of it. Promise. I promise. And then you get to WoW where they take it completely seriously. And, everybody's into it. It's it's treated like this thing that's a real cultural phenomenon. Pokemon is way bigger than WoW. Pokemon is way bigger than Blizzard. Nintendo is a way bigger video game company than Blizzard. And yet the masses don't want to admit it. The masses don't want to admit that Overwatch fell off, that StarCraft fell off, that WoW fell off, right? To this day, they still don't admit that. And meanwhile, Nintendo's hitting new bangers basically every year at this point. It's gotten to the point where why exactly are we still in this why exactly are we still allowing game journos to do their thing? Angry Joe in the Mario movie review, right? Sonic was better. How? In what way, shape, and form was Sonic better? Like, people hated the Sonic movie from the trailer, right? Sega released a press statement recently saying the Sonic movies have cracked $1 billion after like 3 entries. Meanwhile, like, uh, the first Mario movie did like 1.5 billion. Like, again, this isn't like me saying that, like, oh, like the Mario movie is better because it made more money, because that's not the point. Like, the issue is the media did everything it possibly could to prop up Sonic while downplaying the Mario movie, in spite of the Mario movie's clear like successes. Like, it was just this huge organized cope at the time to downplay like the success of like the Nintendo brand. I'm sure they're like in the theme park world, they're trying to downplay like the Nintendo thing as well. That's not gonna stick. Like I saw recently that like that this has been something we've been talking about a lot in the channel. Um, we've been seeing them trying to downplay Donkey Kong Country Returns, and here the sales charts come out, and it's topping the Famitsu sales charts and the Nintendo eShop charts. So clearly, the re-release of Donkey Kong Country Returns is doing really, really well, in spite of all the crying and the whining from the gaming media, right? This is the reality of where we're at right now, is that the gaming media desperately does not want people to realize just how successful Nintendo is right now. They don't want people to know just how popular the Switch 2 is going to be, how well the reveal event was received. They don't want to admit that like nothing they have in the pipeline can compete with it outside of like Grand Theft Auto 6, which is one game, right? We're gonna see like this really interesting kind of like situation in which Grand Theft Auto 6 and Mario Kart 9 are going to come out around the same time, I think it's safe to say. And I think people really underestimate just how popular Mario Kart actually is. Like, it's possible that Mario Kart will compete with Grand Theft Auto. That's a lot of people think that's kind of ridiculous, but if you actually look at how well Mario Kart actually does, like, if Nintendo can just make a better, like, the game is the most popular racing series in the world, right? Like, it's way more fun than Grand Theft Auto. It has way more going for it. It has way more replay value, right? Like, Nintendo has built up this huge, huge brand that's competitive with GTA. And that's not the only thing they have. Unlike Rockstar, which is completely reliant on like these huge AAA like games where like that depicts criminal lifestyles. Like Nintendo has a lot of variety in their lineup, and they appeal to lots of different kinds of people, and like they're gonna have more than just Mario Kart, as opposed to Rockstar, who's going to be reliant on Grand Theft Auto 6 to keep the lights on for the next like 20 years, right? Grand Theft Auto is never going to go away completely, right? But I do think like we're in this phase where we're going to see like we're past the point of it being this major cultural phenomenon, right? It's not a new hot thing anymore. It's just the same thing it's always been, right? And more and more people are going to start to notice that the older games were better, right? And it's going to lead to a slow, gradual decline in the brand. And what that means is that the one game that the game journals are propping up as the savior of the industry, the thing that'll raise game prices to $100, like Grand Theft Auto 6, like it's just not going to be as popular in the future, right? Because of how poorly Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be received compared to just how well the Nintendo games are going to be received, right? Nintendo has won the console war, right? When the industry is begging Grand Theft Auto 6 to be this huge, successful, influential thing that will get people willingly to pay $100 for a new video game, like they've already lost, right? Like, this is why the gaming industry will not be able to defeat Nintendo, because They are completely delusional about how to make good games and how to successfully run their businesses. They have no idea what they are doing.